Good evening, everyone, and those of you watching on our online. We will call the Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 council meeting to order. All of council is present. We'll start by pledge of allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hamilton?
Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you now for your grace and your mercy. Father, we want to thank you for the privilege that you allow us to serve your people. Father, I ask that you fill us with wisdom so that we may make decisions that will be honoring to you and this community all at once. Father, I ask that you guide our hearts and towns of the things we do and say is pleasing in your sight. These blessings act in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Next on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Mr. States, anything add or change?
Yes, Mayor, we'd like to request that item number 7 under consent agenda, which is a consideration of resolution to approve the contract, be removed from this part.
Okay. Anything else? With that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Anything on that? There's lots of discussion. Goodness. All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Whew. That's unanimous. We have minutes from the regular meeting of October 11th. If y'all had a chance to look over them, are there any changes? If not, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. And we have the quarterly workshop minutes, and that was October 18th. If there are no changes, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. We have next presentation, celebrations and recognitions, and I got to meet Giuseppe and his family if they can come up. And if there are teachers here or school representative, is anyone here from the school? Giuseppe, come. Is this a Giuseppe or what? We should almost put you on the table so everyone can see you. So every month, we recognize the student of the month, and that is picked from the entire cluster of Beaufort County students, which encompasses more than half of the school district. So you're up against middle school, high school, everyone does their selection, and then the district picks one. And Giuseppe won it this month, and Giuseppe won it. His character trait was acceptance. Now, does anyone know? Do we know why? The acceptance, does anyone know why he was, do you?
Oh, you do?
Okay, your 4-year-old brother knows. He goes to Michael C. Riley, and he is one of 4, and he is a middle, I think. So he has to accept everything thrown at him. So I can understand why you got acceptance, Giuseppe. Do you want to say anything?
No.
No? What grade are you in?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten. Who's your teacher?
Miss Crisera.
Miss Crisera. Well, this town adopts Michael C. Riley a lot because it's right in our backyard. So if you ever see any of us, see any police officers, accept us with kindness, okay? And welcome us to your school. So you get a certificate we can frame, and you also get a really cool coin that we only give to special people, and it's students of the month, and maybe other people, but not many. So that's for you.
Thank you.
And you're welcome.
Okay, I got it.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Very proud of you.
Why do I
Okay?
have to go?
We want to see you next year here. And you.
Thank you.
We want to see you next year. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Absolutely. Who is one of 4? I get it. Next we have the Municipal Association South Carolina Local Achievement Award, Ashley Callahan. Hello there, I didn't see you were here. She will be here to present us with our latest award we won at the Municipal Association in July.
Well, thank you. Giuseppe is a hard act to follow, but I will do my best. Thank you for having me here tonight. And for those of you all who haven't had a chance to meet yet, Ashley Callahan, I am the Field Services Manager for the South Coastal Region. And Ms. Gammon has my card that she will make sure you all get. Please never hesitate to reach out to me should you need anything. I am pleased to be here tonight to present the Town of Bluffton the 2022 Municipal Achievement Award in the Public Safety category. Your submission on mental health as a public safety issue was truly exemplary, and we had so many great submissions, but this one really stood out amongst the crowd. The main reason the Municipal Association does these awards is to really showcase the very best public service projects throughout the state, so that other cities and towns can use it as a model and an example to follow. And certainly supporting mental health and our public safety officers is truly needed, and truly, as you all have found, really helping with the crisis of retention, certainly as well. So again, thank you for having me, and congratulations on this amazing achievement. And now I'll leave this with Ms. Gallup.
Yeah, pardon? Do you want to get a picture?
Here?
Right
Okay.
Right there. They have a site, and it's NASC.SC, and you can look at all the videos of the awards that were given. We all talk when we read it or see it at the meetings, oh my gosh, we should do that. We've done that, so it's really great to get ideas. And thank you for coming all this way.
Of course.
We'll take good care of it. We'll bring it back next
I
year.
wanted to make sure to share it with your constituents, and thank you for sharing this project with the state.
Absolutely, thank you. Now we're on to item 10, which is public hearing and final reading. It's the consideration of ordinance to approve an updated comprehensive plan for the town of Bluffton known as Blueprint Bluffton. What did I miss? Oh my gosh, I told y'all it's gonna be a quick meeting. Stephen? I tried. Okay, sorry, public comment is item number 7. We have public comment. If you've signed up, Ms. Gammon will take over and call you up, but before she does, you have 3 minutes from beginning to end. Please give us your name and address so we can go back and use this for the record and putting the comment on the record. Address council, and speaking, avoid disrespect to council and any personalities. Confine yourselves to questions under the jurisdiction of our council. Be mindful and respectful of those who are present. Respectful is the key. So I will give it to Ms. Gammon, and you may start.
Jim Lawton.
Jim Lawton. Let's see if he comes in at the end.
Okay. Grant McClure.
Grant McClure.
Hello, my name is Grant McClure. I'm the South Coast Project Manager for the Coastal Conservation League, and I live in Beaufort. I'm going to be talking tonight about the Palmetto Bluff amendments to the development agreement. My name is Grant McClure, and I'm the South Coast Project Manager. While the League is pleased the negotiating committee recommended the denial of the developer's request for fueling over water, we hold the position that an up to 170 wet slip marina is incompatible for this location on the New River. Additionally, our concerns include the impact of increased boat wakes, which erode salt marsh, and in a shallow river characterized by sandbars, oyster beds, and mud flats, may result in future dredging to accommodate larger vessels. The League commends the negotiating committee for disincentivizing the wet slips in the marina. Limiting wet slips reduces the likelihood of fuel and oil spills and the leaching of anti-fouling paints, metals, and chemicals, but it does not totally eliminate those risks. We believe the Town Council should further negotiate additional benefits from the developers in exchange for allowing a second dry stack, such as permanent protections for long and doughboy islands. These two hummocks provide critical migratory bird habitat and should be left undeveloped. We further recommend Town Council consider restricting dredging around Big House Anson as part of an amended development agreement. Additionally, the developers should monitor the environmental impacts of the marina project before, during, and after construction, and also they should conduct a baseline assessment of the new river, similar to the assessment that was done for the May River. Construction should cease when it corresponds with declines in water quality. We know that South Street Partners is already busy with other projects, such as a 9-hole golf course, and there's a need for a more holistic analysis of those cumulative environmental impacts. The League further recommends the town obtain a commitment to implement living shoreline erosion control solutions, such as recycled oyster shell reefs, instead of traditional hard erosion control structures like bulkheads and revetments, since erosion and marsh migration may be inevitable if this project moves forward at its current scale. Town Council should not forget the requests for an additional dry stack and dockside fueling were unanimously denied by the Planning Commission in November of 2021. It's not too late to uphold their denial of the recommendation, especially since cards were left on the negotiating table, and publicly shared resources are still very much at risk for the gain of a group of individuals. Thank you for your time.
Jane Hester.
Hello, I'm Jane Hester, 8 Palmetto Beach Drive, Bluffton, South Carolina, and I speak for both myself and for Hilton Head Audubon Society. And once again, here I am, and I want to thank the council and the staff for all their endeavors on going through this long process for amendments to the development agreement. As you've heard me say before many times, and I'm going to repeat one last time, I think that I and Hilton Head Audubon Society oppose these recommendations and would like to see no improvements in that area. We also want to ask you, as you vote one more time, to give your utmost concern to environmental causes that are going on with this. And we ask that you vote for the environment and not for finance. We thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And that's all we have other than Jim Lawton.
Is Jim Walton here? Was that internet? Okay. Public comment is closed. We will move on to communications from mayor and council. Anything on this side? Yes, ma'am.
We'd just like to announce some upcoming opportunities to be able to give back to the community for those who've inquired. The Frazier family is sponsoring their annual Thanksgiving feast where they feed over 500 individuals in the community for free. And anyone who's interested in volunteering by coming and serving that day or just being a part of the event can find information on social media for that and sign up. And there's also a turkey drive that one of our officers have started, and I believe that's in conjunction with Bluffton High School, and you can drop off turkeys there. They're not accepting money, just turkeys.
Anything?
No, I'm good.
On this side, Dan, Fred? I'll add to that is Officer Frazier is back with our police department. He took a little trip to Atlanta and realized that wasn't where he wanted to be with his family. That's not a great place to raise Bluffton boys. So he moved back and he's back with the department. He has started this turkey drive and it's fabulous. So please take them. We'll get it on social media, but it's that week before Thanksgiving and you can bring them in and they'll get them in the coolers at Bluffton High. And he's gotten any from 170 to 300 turkeys at one time. He had the football team working their tails off, delivering turkeys, and he delivers them all too. So please help out. Today, and Dan mentioned it too, but he mentioned it for council. When you went in to vote today, I went in and there was a young high school student there. So refreshing, you don't think we're in good hands, and I'm telling y'all, we're in good hands. These young kids have it going, and I think it was a youth and government class. Dan saw two and made a comment and thanked them, and I did too. So I hope y'all saw that. I hope you used the pay it forward method of thanking them, because kids love praise, and they really did a great job. So shout out to all the high schools that have their youth and government classes. Okay, nothing else. It's a workshop is item 9, and we are doing a discussion on proposed annual amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. And Kevin, this is a workshop item. No votes are going to be taken, and we're going to start this. So if anyone wants to have input in our UDO, and I hear it a lot at council meetings, you're at the right time between now and the first of the year. Follow our agendas, because you can have good input into what you want to see changed if you think we're off track. Hey, Kevin.
Thank you. Hey. Yes, ma'am. We're here this evening. So we have an annual UDO assessment. That's part of the strategic plan that we brought forward. So what we're doing is we're having a couple of projects we would like to bring forward to you. Right now, we're keeping it very high level, so I'm just talking more on the lines of different categories, not necessarily getting into depth of any specific text changes. So we have some miscellaneous items, procedural items, nonconformities, outdoor storage, garden structures, and issues with public parking. So the first one is miscellaneous. With any document, we find grammatical errors. So we have quite a few misspellings. We have some formatting issues, and instead of and, things like that, words that are missing, extra S's on the end of words. So we're working on cleaning that up. From a procedural standpoint, we wanted to make sure, again, we have the miscellaneous of property of posting. It's posting of property, so we're changing that. And then also for the appeals section, we have it listed here is that if through state law, if anyone wanted to appeal specifically to the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, or the Historic Preservation Commission, we've added that item on here and then included the necessary posting of 15 days. Some of the nonconformities from a structural standpoint of the way that it's written is that we wanted to reference back to Article 8 of the Unified Development Ordinance, and that handles nonconformities as opposed to just the determination of the UDO administrator. To clarify that land is dedicated for right-of-way, the results of nonconformity, that the nonconformity may be for any aspect as it's regulated by the UDO, not just dealing with front yard setbacks. And what that is the way the ordinance is written now, it just talks about the front yard setback. It doesn't necessarily talk about anything else. So we wanted to make sure that it's cleaned up so it encompasses any type of issues that would come from any type of right-of-way. Right-of-way doesn't necessarily mean that it's in the front of the yard. There could be on the side or the rear. So we just wanted to clear that up. Outdoor sales, the way we have our ordinance written right now is outdoor sales mainly focuses on your seasonal type sales, so pumpkins, Christmas tree lots, things like that. What we're trying to do is acknowledge that you can have a principal business, so your business, and then you could potentially have, items that you normally sell in your business outside for display. The way that the ordinance is written right now is it doesn't allow for that, and it's not very clear. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we come back to you and show you the difference between a business, a retail business that puts a rack of clothes out for sale and brings it back in at nighttime versus a business that is primarily engaging with their product outside, or if it's another business that is trying to just be on a lot and then have just outside sales. So we're going to make sure to clear that. I know you're all looking at me. It seems very confusing. It is. And the goal is to have that clarified when we bring this forward to you.
So you're saying right now businesses can't put out a rack of clothes?
Well, the way that it's written, correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure to clarify.
Does it, how about, so funny, I thought my inner Mayor McCracken in me, I remember him on county council one day saying he doesn't want to eliminate the small town bill of tomato sales and peaches and things like that. I don't think we have them so much in the town, but I'll pull him in a minute. You're not disallowing something like that?
We're not.
Okay.
Yes, that's still, that kind of falls under those seasonal sales things that we referred to, and we'll make sure to clarify that. Okay. Next, we have just clarifications on different, what is a garden structure versus what is a shed. A garden structure could be a pergola, which is not a shed. So it could just be a structure that, has no roof to it. Just, we're making sure that we can clarify as to what we're doing.
I just want to, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, all right. No problem. So we want to clarify to make sure what we're defining as a garden structure from a residential standpoint, and also in the historic district, we're starting to see some of these smaller structures that are coming up. So we want to make sure that we're identifying them, and if it's for specific commercial use associated with the business, that we are capturing that, and that there's no confusion as to what that is. So again, this is very high level, and as we move forward, we'll have more information. And then parking requirements. We have a provision in our ordinance, and I've highlighted it here. It says parking calculations may include public parking that's within 500 feet of the property. So yes. And what we've been doing is making sure, we have made a determination that, we don't find that this is appropriate. We don't allow people to use a parking lot to meet all of their parking requirements. So our goal is to actually just go ahead and consider removing this section. Now, that's not to say that you can't have shared parking. So you'd still be allowed to have the shared parking. You could, in the historic district, you could still use the parking spaces on street to help to account for some of your parking requirements, but you cannot use a parking lot 500 feet away from you to meet all of your parking requirements.
I thought we cleared this up when we did the new parking regulations for the restaurants and all, like 3 or 4
We
years
did,
ago.
but this is one of those items that we didn't catch. That it's sitting out there, and we wanted to make sure. For restaurants, yes, you still have to have all of your restaurant parking on your property. So, but what that doesn't catch is other uses. So if you just have a retail use, you could potentially use this, and it's kind of a leftover that we're making sure that we're removing this, so that way it's not allowed.
This is just putting a finite
Sir.
distance to it, period.
Yes.
So that, I get it clearly. And Larry, you're right, we did address that.
Yes. Yeah, we captured it with restaurants, saying that all restaurants in the historic district must have their parking on their property.
How did you derive it to 500 feet?
That was that has been in the ordinance since the inception of it in 2011.
Is that a practical number?
He wants to remove it.
Want to remove it?
Totally remove it.
Yes, so that way individuals, you could still potentially have shared parking.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand here.
This is just saying that if there is a public parking lot, a town parking lot.
Parking lot. Okay.
Yes, a couple examples would be up on Bluffton Road. If that parking lot, if there's any properties, that they could then use that to meet their parking requirement.
This does not pertain to on-street parking?
It will not, correct. So we have a provision specifically in the historic district that you're allowed to use in front of your business. If you have a 50-foot wide lot, there's 2 parking spaces in front of your business. You could use those to meet your any retail or office type uses. You cannot use those to meet your restaurant parking requirement. So that provision will still be allowed. What this is just if you were to put a property and put a radius, and if there's a parking lot in that area, that they can't then use that to meet their requirements.
Public parking.
Public parking.
So because I thought we had addressed this too, but this is, say, the Baptist church parking that we lease, that's public parking.
Yes.
Right now, if they're within 500 feet of that and they want a new building, they can utilize the calculations to utilize that.
Yes.
And 6 other businesses
And we've
can too.
been, we made the determination no, that we're not doing that. But what we're doing now is coming back and clearly just taking that out of the code, so that way there's no confusion.
Do you have applicants that are trying to take advantage of that?
Yes.
And what I will add, microphones can pick me up from here, is that because it says may, that doesn't automatically entitle or authorize a development to include it. So we have had inquiries for like when we built parking at Green Street, well, can I count that parking? I've made the interpretation to say, no, that's public parking. They pull out this section, I said it says may, doesn't say we have to, so.
Just debate.
Fast track.
So are you telling us ideas you're bringing to us, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
These are,
so
right
we
now,
will
these are
see
just
this
ideas. I'd like to spur on any discussion that you may have this evening of these items that you'd like to talk about in more detail. I'm happy to do that. I will say that, there's previous discussion about like architectural requirements that we've talked about with the Planning Commission Chair. Our intent is during strategic planning next week that we will have a more in-depth discussion at that time. So we have not forgotten about that. We're just focusing.
No, I just didn't know what the purpose of this was.
Right.
We're not voting on any of this.
No, ma'am.
You're just giving us an idea of what we're gonna see coming up on.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And just if you have any questions or any concerns about any of these things, if you say, hey, no, I think that that's okay, we need to leave it as is, we can do that. Again, from a timeline standpoint, we'd like to set up that potential joint workshop with Planning Commission at some time in January. Bring it through Historic Preservation Commission if anything relates to them, just as a cursory review, Planning Commission, and then first and second readings. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or if there's any additional items you see fit that you'd like for us to include.
Okay, just let them know before.
Yes,
Our
and you can
plan.
feel free to reach out to me at any time, and I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you.
I was approached a couple of times recently about the intersection at Wharf and 46. That is very hard for traffic, for them to come out of Wharf and make a left or right turn. And one of the problems that I've noticed is that the on-street parking blocks the view. So can we look at the on-street parking for now to see if we can move those needed site blockage?
Yes, the site distance, absolutely.
And that's the same area that we had discussed before about the pedestrian crosswalk.
Yes.
You can't come out of there with a boat and a trailer behind you without running right over to there.
And during the workshop, we also we were reaching out to DOT to have them to look back at that intersection to see if they would reconsider putting a four-way stop up in there.
Should we all have a conversation about where those four-way stops go?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's not there, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, we're looking at Thomas Hayward, I apologize for the four-way stop. My bad, I'm getting confused on the wrong intersection.
That could only be a three-way stop.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong intersection, apologize. Yep.
That's a good idea.
And those are things we're gonna talk about next week.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Make sure you have that on your notes too, to bring up.
Okay.
Anything else on this? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Now we're at the public hearing. So there's public hearing, the ordinance to approve an updated comprehensive plan for the town of Bluffton, known as Blueprint Bluffton. This is final reading. Let's jump because then we have a comment. Is there a comment, public comment for the public hearing on our comprehensive plan known as Blueprint Bluffton?
Yes. Emmett McCracken.
Mr. McCracken.
Madam Mayor and members of council, I started to open this up with an ahoy, but I realized that you only had one for one day and that would be inappropriate. I'm Emmett McCracken. I live at 58 South Farm Road, Bluffton. A little over 2 decades ago, and in a different incarnation, I had the opportunity to be directly involved in the comprehensive plan of Beaufort County and then later on in the town of Bluffton. And as a result, this has given me an appreciation of the challenges and difficulties in doing this, in working with consultants, in energizing stakeholders and melding sometimes very diverse views into a workable, comprehensive plan. I believe the staff has been successful in doing this and deserves our congratulations on pulling this all together. I think the litany of action items are sufficient to keep everyone busy for the next 5 or 8 years, if done properly, and will serve to the long-term benefit of Bluffton. Finally, I'm in touch directly with an elderly citizen who tried to stay involved in this process over the many months, and he has asked me to relay his thanks to Charlotte Moore for her patience in getting him through several Zoom sessions and other computer challenges. And he is especially appreciative, he said, of her kindness and refrain from hinting that his suggested changes to the comp plan were not quite as important as he thought they were. Y'all taking me much too seriously.
I've never seen your wife, I know who it was. Boy.
How long have you lived in Bluffton?
Let me change that. I'm finished with the comp plan.
Okay.
And thanks, I want to personally thank Charlotte. I was remiss this morning at the park and thinking about it, and we were commenting on the pocket park, and the many people, Randolph Stewart and others, that had a role in that, and I was remiss in mentioning and failing to mention the town of Bluffton. For example, there were 50-odd certificates of appropriateness that have been issued for that. So somebody on the HPC has been working very hard, and the staff has assisted me in 2006 and 7 for getting that off the ground. So if anyone likes anything about Stock Farm, they can thank the town. If they don't like it, they can call me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mayor, I would write a note and put it in her her personnel file. It'd be nice to have put in there. So.
I don't know who that, if you want, I'll give you that fellow's name.
Dude, is it anonymous? Anonymous name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlotte knows who it is, and that's what's important.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else, Kim? No. Okay. Second call for public comment. Third call for public comment. Public comment is over, and the public hearing is over, and you are on final reading, and were there changes to this?
There were 2 changes that we had. One was the adding the oyster harvesting that was discussed by Mayor McCracken, and then the minor revisions of punctuation and formatting, and those have all been corrected.
Great. Any questions of this? This is final reading. Is there a motion to approve an ordinance to adopt an updated 2022 comprehensive plan for the town of Bluffton known as Blueprint Bluffton?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We all did what Mayor McCracken says. I think it was a task taken on with so much else going on. And I think Planning Commission did a fine job really picking it and getting those final workshops. So I want to thank them as well. Anything else? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. How long? 8 years? You'll be your guest. Okay, formal agenda items. We have several. The first is the consideration. The first 2 are together really, but the first is consideration of request by Palmetto Bluff LLC for a Fifth Amendment to the Palmetto Bluff Development Agreement to provide for dockside fueling and a second dry stack boat storage at Big House Tracks Anson Marina. First reading, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning,
Yes.
good evening. I've said good morning enough. Okay. You're
So from a presentation standpoint, there are 2 items. So ultimately, at the end, there will be 2 separate votes, 1 presentation.
So you're doing a presentation for item 1 and 2.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we read item 2 for the minutes. So we're also going to be discussing the Second Amendment to the Palmetto Bluff Concept Plan to provide for dockside fueling and a second dry stack boat storage at Big House Track Anson Marina.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. So we do request this first reading to move forward. As you just stated, this is for the Fifth Amendment to the Development Agreement for Palmetto Bluff, as well as the Second Amendment to the Concept Plan for the dockside fueling and second dry stack boat storage. Quick timeline is when the application was submitted in March 23rd of 2021. This was heard as a workshop in August of last year with the Planning Commission. There were some revisions to the application in September to move forward. November, Planning Commission held a public hearing. They recommended denial. November 9th, this came in front of Town Council. At that point, you tabled requesting that the information be sent to the negotiating committee. Went to the negotiating committee on January 6th of this year. It was then postponed for additional information discussions. Went again on May 17th to the negotiating committee, postponed for additional information. And then on October 4th, the negotiating committee recommended the following. So the request, this is the recommendation to you, Town Council, is that the request for the fuel over water be denied. That the second dry stack storage at Anson Marina be authorized with the following conditions, is that the number of wet slips cannot exceed 170, which is currently permitted with their DHEC permit. From the 400 slips authorized under the Second Amendment, this would leave the 230 for dry stack. And then from an incentive standpoint is that wet slips would be converted to dry stack slips at that's backwards, it's a 1-to-2 ratio. So one wet slip for 2 dry stack slips. Tongue twister there. And then you cannot convert your dry stack slips to wet slips. And then to recommend this be forwarded to Town Council. So some of the staff's comments on this is to make sure that there were some questions about definitions and procedural items. So, as we move forward, if this moves forward with the first reading, the applicant's attorney and the town's attorney will be working together to make sure that all of the language that would be in that final ordinance would be drafted and agreed upon. Again, we talked about the wet slips not exceeding the 170, the dry stack at the 230. We provided that definition of the wet slip. We referred to the dry stack slip. What it is the inward facility that's covered or uncovered, constructed horizontal, vertical, landward members designed to allow placement of small boats. And then that conversion, the way that we would keep track of that would be through recording in the Register of Deeds of an acknowledgement of conversion executed by the town and the applicant. Now, that conversion only happens if the applicant is going from, they have their 170 and they wanted to reduce that number of the 170 wet slips to the dry slips. So that conversion happens at that point. Makes sense? Any questions? Okay. And then this was just that slip schedule that was part of the DHEC's approval. If there was any questions about that, we had that here. From a process standpoint, we are at the first reading. If it moves forward, we bring this back in front of you in December. Some of the information, this is previously what we had. The main thing that we're removing is the lettering in blue with the red stripe through it. That would have been to allow for that dockside fueling. So again, dockside fueling gone, no more. And then again, under the concept plan, removing that, the fueling facilities that were dockside. We have 2 proposed motions. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. The applicants here can answer any questions, as well as Mr. Finger can answer any questions.
Jim, if I start. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to go first?
Well, I was gonna
I
recognize
just want to
you.
clarify something, this won't take me but a second. Go back to where, hold on. Let's see. Right here. Up to 3 water access points in aggregate may be constructed on the easterly and southerly boundaries of Palmetto Bluff Tract. I thought all that was taken out of there.
No, sir, that's all existing language. What was, and you can see.
3 water, okay.
Yeah.
3 water access points, meaning the marina will have 3.
No, sir, that's for the overall development. So that was the existing language that was in there, and you can see what was in red. The red text was being proposed to be removed, and that's where we then would have these 2 access points, the 2 dry stack access points. So you'd have one in Wilson, and then the other one would then be in Anson. And then the blue text was what was proposed to allow for the dockside fueling, but that is being removed based off of negotiating committee's recommendation. And if you, I don't know, if you wanted to, you can kind of see where just that conversion of the wet slips, the dry stack, and then allowing for that second dry stack. I'll let.
Yes, Councilman.
The current status is that the Anson Marina has been approved for 170 slips, wet slips at this point. Under the second amendment to the Palmetto Bluff Agreement, which was years ago, they would have the right to see if DHEC will allow them to go up to 400 wet slips there. The negotiating committee, with the consent of the applicant, has agreed to limit wet slips to 170, that they will not attempt to go over 170 now or in the future. That would be one component of our amendment to the development agreement and the concept plan. It was also the feeling of the negotiation committee that the less wet slips, the better. So we try to incentivize the applicant to reduce the 170 down more, and to do that with 2-to-1 conversion. If you took a, for instance, a 25, as you can see in the chart that Kevin had up a minute ago, from their DHEC permit, there are various slip sizes. There's 25, 35, 40, 50, and 55 are the various slip sizes. And they also have some linear feet on side ties. On the linear feet, it would be a 2-for-1 conversion foot for foot. On the slip sizes, if they converted a 25-foot wet slip, they would get the equivalent of 50 feet dry. So we were trying to reduce the number from 170 down as low as possible. The language that the applicant has suggested and the definitions that Bree has come up with, which are in the package, and I sent them to you separately last week. I think that language will go in the amendment to the development agreement, and I know it deals with these precise issues that you and I spoke about last week, about tying it length as opposed to slips. So I don't know if I've answered your question correctly, but I think that the language that has been suggested by both the applicant and Bree that's in the package, I think alleviates any gray areas about if they take this much off the wet slips, what do they get dry slip-wise? I think we've defined that pretty well. The thought today is if we get council's approval to implement the negotiating committee's suggestions, then we will have a draft for you in December of the amendment to the development agreement and the concept plan.
Where the definitions are clear.
With the definition.
I don't want to,
That's
for a
correct.
second, I don't want to pass something about that definition
Yes.
clear.
So tonight, we would be just accepting the concept of the negotiating committee's suggestions.
That's correct. That's
And it
correct.
wouldn't be first reading.
No, I would suggest that we hold first reading.
Right.
Once we have the actual document for you to see.
So that we know exactly what's in there, and
That would be my suggestion.
that would be what we're voting on, not.
I mean, we can do it either way.
My question, why are we doing it tonight then? I thought it was first reading. I wasn't told we were not doing first reading.
I thought it was presented as first reading a minute ago.
But we don't know the wording.
I can tell you that the wording on the conversion and the wording on the definitions will be exactly like the email that I sent you on November 2nd, which is a combination of work that we've done with the applicant and definitions that staff have come up with. So I know that those are the two critical components of these amendments, and they are in front of you. They are in the package that Kevin has put together for you all.
I didn't see the language that you sent in an email on the linear foot I didn't see that. So I just don't want,
Each slip had a linear foot designation, 35, 45.
but I didn't see it in
30.
this pack, I didn't see it in this.
I saw it on the plans, I'm not,
If you're comfortable, I'm fine.
well, that was my big thing, about the definition of what a slip is, because a slip could be 130 feet or 300 feet or 20 feet.
The definition of the slip that is proposed.
I'm okay with that.
With that.
Yeah, that's a foot, 2 feet for 1 foot.
Right.
There,
Yes,
I
that's right.
understand.
I interrupted you, I apologize. The slip definitions were actually in the permit approval to OCRM, weren't they?
Descriptions.
The description, so the chart was, yes.
Right.
Correct.
But they even do it with a drawing, I thought. And the actual permit that they have in their possession,
Shows how long.
approved, shows that.
Right.
That is correct.
Right.
So they're all different size.
They are, but denoted as such.
Right, but that was one of my issues where we said you can build 400 slips. Can they build 420-foot slips? Or can they build 425-foot slips? With our agreement that was, what was it, 06 or whatever, or the Fifth Amendment up to it, that said that the town will allow them to build a wet slip, 1 wet slip per 10 RDUs. So that comes up to 400, but no definition of the size of those slips. I'm not talking about what the permit right now allows for 170 slips. I got it.
Correct.
But I didn't, but the agreement that they have with the town says you can build 400 slips with no definition to what size slip. So that's why I pushed you to clarify and put definition to what a slip is.
And the chart that is in the permit that Councilman was referring to specifically sets out how many 25-foot slips there are, how many 35 there are, et cetera.
I've read it 20 times.
See it right there. And it also has linear feet, and they define that 805 linear feet is 16 slips. So the definition and the linear conversion is already in their permit, which is what we were going to adopt in our language, in the development agreement amendment.
Just so
Sorry.
well, I'm trying to.
I'm just trying to make sure that
Please
y'all
talk
are-
to Terry, because we're not negotiating.
Yeah.
We gotta talk.
No, I'm not trying to change anything that's here tonight. I'm just trying to say the remaining slips, had they built this one, I know they can build this 170 and we can say no and they can do it anyway. I understand that. I get it very clear. That's permitted. They have the right to do it. But there were still 230 slips in their agreement with the town of Bluffton that could be built if OCRM, the Army Corps of Engineers, and DHEC would allow them, whether it's now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. That's the definition that was so important to me to define.
Right, and the language that we have,
I got it now.
the language we propose removes that concern because it specifically says, this is what you can do in your 170. You cannot do any more than 170.
Zero, right.
Period. Yes.
Just let me clarify, because I don't, and I'm fine doing first reading and having the change, but in the information we got from you, it was an example. I just want to make sure this is in the definition. So, if Palmetto Bluff seeks to convert a 25-foot wet slip, then it may be converted to 50 feet of dry footage. If Palmetto Bluff seeks to convert a 40-foot wet slip, it may be converted to 80 feet of dry storage. Are we capturing that in the definition?
Yes, we are.
That's,
Yes,
That's exactly,
okay.
that's what I,
That's right.
then my big thing is, I wanna see that. I want it to be, I wanna read the amendment and say, okay, this is what I'm voting yes to.
Correct.
This is what I'm allowed, so I understand it.
The language that we have proposed that you have seen will be essentially duplicated in the written amendment. Might be beefed up a little bit, but the conversion ratio, and most importantly, the chart that delineates their 170 is going to be part of our amendment.
And one other thing, just for us to clarify here, I would think, Kevin was saying, if they take off a wet slip, they could build it, the 50-foot wet slip allows 100 foot of dry stack. I would think that they wouldn't build that if they want more dry stack, instead of building it, spending the money to build it, and then taking it, tearing it down. So that needs some clarification. If they decide not to build the last 50 or whatever, then you understand what I'm saying?
Then they can convert.
I don't know how you word that, but
It's in phases right now, so.
Right.
It's 4 phases, right, so in the 4 phases, and you can see those 4 phases right there.
right.
So I believe phases 2 and 3 are the ones that are, or 2 and 4, 2 and 3, maybe the applicant could be here, are what's under construction right now. So what would happen is
This phase 1 is under construction, correct?
I'm gonna let, the way that the, phase 2 is under construction right now. While it says phase 1, the way that it is designed is where the dock master office comes down into the water. That's what's under construction right now. So that phase 2 is the first phase that they're starting with. When you look at the DHEC permit, the actual drawing of where the dock is located, that it represents the phase 2 area. I know that just.
So out of curiosity, what's the second one that's built? Is it 3 or 1?
So
The phases are they're not time sequence, they are geographical locations.
yes, yeah.
That made sense to me. It might have made no sense to anyone else.
common sense tells me phase 1 gets built first, so that confuses me a lot, and I've not heard that before.
That common sense hasn't quite made it to the people who do the dock permits, unfortunately. They do it geographically as opposed to in time.
Okay.
So, and maybe I can help to summarize. So if you decide to move forward with the first reading, the recommendations from negotiating committee, the discussion of clarifying, make sure the wet slips information is included. This would all be put into the whereas form as we refer to in the ordinances that go through. Make sure it's very clear as to what these definitions are. They're included in that amendment. This slip schedule would be included in that amendment, so that way we all are, clearly showing what information is out there. And then we would have all that brought to you at that second reading.
Are there any other questions on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Dan?
Well, for one thing, if they're able to convert a wet slip of 25 to 50, excuse me, the larger number allows the footage of the building to grow quicker, does it not? I mean, you see what I'm saying? So there's a limit to what they probably want to build out there. In a sense, that can almost work counter to us, if you get what I'm trying to say here. The goal is to get them not to put the wet slips out there, but yet we're giving them bigger footage faster, which means they may not want to do away with as many wet slips, because now they could take 50, for example, and do the math, and you got a really big building because you just gave them double the space. So I don't know how that plays into this. I don't know that we shoot on that one. The next part is, and this is minor housekeeping, on page 294, they indicated they intend to do the certification for the South Carolina Clean Marinas. They do it already. All the marinas around here do it. If you look it up on the line item, the hyperlink, so I would say change that to shall. They're going to do it anyway, but just clean that up. The other part is overnight regulations. Are there any overnight regulations in place? If, we don't know what they're planning on doing at this marina with people who want to stay on boats for a given period of time. I mean, are there any needs for cleanup, removal of facilities there for something like that? That boats that, if you understand what I'm saying, maybe have self-contained bathrooms or whatever they have on the boat, but they're going to stay there days. I mean, what are we doing with that?
They got pump out stations.
Do they? Do we know that is part of this?
Part of the plan anyway.
Okay, all right.
I think they would have to.
Okay. I'm good.
Any questions?
No question, I just had a comment. I wanted to, I attended that meeting that they, the partners had with the community members, and I just thought that it showed in good faith in doing that and being able to answer and respond to the request that we gave the last time that we met, and being able to hear the concerns of the residents there. And it seems that the negotiating team, along with staff and the applicant, worked to address that, as many were in favor of the direction we're going in now with the allowing dry slips over the fuel over water. So I just wanted to commend the applicants for that.
Do you have questions, Rick?
I'm good.
I just, a couple of, if I could, and we'll go back around again. A couple of things. I don't know if it's a typo, I don't understand it, but on your page 284, I guess, where you had, when Larry was talking about the up to 3 water access points.
Mm-hmm.
So, did we miss it, or does it stay where you say fueling facilities shall be allowed at the accesses, but with the exception of the big house access point, there shall be no dispensing of fuel either at docks or within buffers? That's going to explain that to me.
So fueling facilities shall be allowed at the accesses upland. So you can still have a fueling facility, you can still fuel boats upland. You just can't bring the gas down to the dock.
I think we need to be really clear. Part of this is really tying the knot on these development agreements that we had no control over 20 years ago.
Right.
Personally, I think we need to be super clear.
Okay.
Because 10 years from now, you're gonna have different people, and it's kind of, well, that's what it intended, and I think we just have to really, while you're buttoning up your UDO, let's really button this up. So I think just to be clear, because I surely didn't understand it.
I agree totally with that, and that's something that I mentioned to Terry today on the phone, that I really don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't want my kids or yours or 25, 30 years from now. I want this to be airtight and done right, because it's obvious some mistakes were made on behalf of the town in the past. My next question is, Kevin, their right to build, the way the amendment is now, says that they can build the 400, which they are allowed to build a 170 wet, that's obvious, and the 230 on the dressing. When are they allowed to reach that 400 mark? It was 10% of the RDUs, which they have 4,000 RDUs. So is this allowed when the RDU building permit is issued? Is it allowed to build before? Since it's tied to residential units.
Right.
Which comes first, the boat storage or the people, or the houses?
So the way that the ordinance is currently written is that 10% allotment, the 400 total slips, they have to be in increments. As the population of Palmetto Bluff grows, they're allowed to then grow the marina with it. So I think Mr. Toomer's question is, do they have to follow that same format now, or can they go and then build a dry stack now, even though it says that it has to stair step with the population?
That's just one of those things that, I really think we should take into consideration and get it right. Whatever we decide to do, just get it where it can't be interpreted but one way. It's the right way, and that's it.
It didn't make sense, but then it made sense to me. So because we totally cut out, the wet slips are 10% of RDUs, we're gonna cut that out. But the total of 230 dry and 170 wet do equal 400, and where does that phase in?
Exactly.
I got you.
I understand, and I'll work with Mr. Finger, and we'll make sure that that's very clear.
The commercial footage of the dry stack comes off the commercial, because the RDUs and commercial always convert back and forth. So that commercial footage that they're gonna build for the dry stack, that comes off the overall numbers, does it not?
It comes off of acreage, yes.
Acreage.
So they're commercial by acreage. And it would come from that.
But that wouldn't have any effect on the RDUs, the commercial aspect of it.
Yes, sir.
I'll finish my couple last questions. During public comment and the Coastal Conservation League, I hope they take that to DHEC and OCRM because we have no control over waterways. Absolutely. So Grant, I hope you're sending that same thing to people way above us in pay grade. So what you requested, we couldn't do if we couldn't, because we don't control OCRM or DHEC. So please do that. I know that there'll be watchdogs all over the place. It's going to be done right. We're very focused on this waterway. We could not reduce 170 because that's been permitted by people above us. If we deny this, it doesn't matter. They still can do it. We're trying to make best with what we are dealt. And whenever an agreement is open, the group that sat up here with us, they live and breathe, eat, drink Bluffton, and all of them are on that river. So they were just as concerned, and I was very proud of all of them. From Burl Davis to Ashley Feaster to even the county rep. It was so, they were so educated on it. So we're just trying to make good with what we're dealt with. And I heard from Palmetto Bluff residents, I've heard from people that spoke at public comment at negotiating committee. They feel that this was a good compromise, and it really does just tighten things up, because we all scratched our heads on what does any of it mean. So, and I'm sure it might come back again. And if someone wants to open up a development agreement, we're going to whittle away to something. So that was really all I had. I just want to make sure Larry's concerns are addressed in the definitions, and we'll see that clearly before second reading.
And we have received a draft from the applicant of a proposed amendment. And with some tightening up and some work, I believe we can include all y'all's comments tonight. We need to put the chart in this document, and I think the definitions are already in there, Lauren, if I recall, the draft I've received. So we can have it ready for you very quickly.
And I do appreciate them doing that, but I think we've got to get our thoughts.
Correct.
And it won't pass on second reading if there's anything, I mean, just because it passes on first, doesn't mean it's gonna pass on second. So I want us to take control over the definitions and the edits and things like that aren't negotiating.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Yeah, I want to say, follow what you just said. I mean, I didn't sit on the negotiating committee, obviously, and, the biggest argument from the public or concern was fuel over water. That's a victory. The other part of it was the 170 slips, which is our hope that the developer will not build the full 170 slips. They will convert some of this over. That would be a win. So there is some wins that's come out of the negotiating committee's ideas with this, and so there we are.
Anything else? Got anything else, Larry?
So we're gonna approve this with all these conditions at first reading before we get to read what I understand what we're saying. I just always, personally, I like to look at something, read it, make my little brain understand what's in it before I said, yes, let's go, or do not go, or just make sure everything's included.
I would suggest that council consider the language that I had proposed to you in my email dated November 2nd, which has the definitions in it, it has the chart in it, and it has the conversion ratios in it. I know that the applicant has seen it. The applicant is fine with it. We'll have to tune it up a little bit, and we'll get it into the form document. But the most of the language, other than 55 whereas clauses that talk about how many times it's been amended and all that, has already been done by the applicant. Actually, it's been done by us, it's been done by them a number of times. But the meat of the negotiating committee points are in the language that I proposed to you last week, which will be in the amended. So if you want your first reading to say it must include the language and the concepts in my email to you last week, I'm happy with that.
Along with all the other.
Yes, correct.
That's what we're gonna see next month, so we've had a chance to look at it.
Because technically, all the language and definitions are there, it's just a matter of contextually going back and rewording it to the standards you all want.
And let's move on. I'm ready to vote.
Okay. So we have two items, item 1 and 2. We've seen the presentations together. And then we'll vote on each of them. I do want that out so the public can read it, Terry, before second reading.
It will be.
I think it's fair for them to be able to see that.
We'll make sure that's included in the package.
Okay. So is there a recommendation to approve the request by Palmetto Bluff Development LLC for a Fifth Amendment to Palmetto Bluff Development Agreement to provide for dockside fueling and a second dry stack boat storage at the Big House Track Anson Marina with the following conditions? The request for fuel over water be denied, that a second dry stack at Anson Marina in the Big House Track be authorized under the following conditions. The number of wet slips cannot exceed 170, which is the number currently permitted. From the 400 slips authorized under the Second Amendment, this leaves 230 for dry stack slips. Wet slips may be converted to dry stack slips. One wet slip may be converted to 2 dry stack slips with the definition noted in the November 3rd email from our legal counsel.
November 2nd.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. And dry stack slips cannot be converted to wet slips. Do it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Did I cover it? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Then on item 2, is there a recommendation to approve the request by Palmetto Bluff Development LLC for a second amendment to the Palmetto Bluff Concept Plan to provide for dockside fueling and a second dry stack boat storage at the Big House Tracks Anson Marina with the following conditions. Are they all listed here, or are you gonna scroll down on me? The request for fuel over water be denied. At a second dry stack at Anson Marina in the Big House Track be authorized under the following conditions. The number of wet slips cannot exceed 170, which is the number currently permitted. From the 400 slips authorized under the Second Amendment, this leaves 230 for dry stack slips. Wet slips may be converted to dry stack slips. One wet slip may be converted to 2 dry stack slips. With the definition per our legal counsel's email of November 2nd, dry stack slips cannot be converted to wet slips. You got me nervous.
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. I know it's, whew. Next is number 3, consideration of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2023 budget to provide carry forward unspent expenditures and encumbrances for the 2022 budget to the 2023. This is second and final reading. Were there any changes, Chris, on this?
Yes, so being the mayor and council, there is one change since first reading. We received word that we received a state proviso secured by Representative Bill Herpersman of $100,000 that will be directed towards our police department. And that those funds will be dedicated to the upgrade and replacement of police body cams and dash cams. That is the only change. He's pulling up your motion.
Any questions of Chris on this? This is second and final reading. It's something we do every year with carryover. And if there are no questions, is there a, thank you, motion to approve the second and final reading of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2023 budget to provide for expenditures of certain funds, commit additional funds to the Capital Asset Reserve Fund, and to allocate sources of revenue for the said funds to carry over unspent expenditures and encumbrances from the 2022 budget to the 2023 budget.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. You're gonna get your ups and downs tonight. Your item number 4, consideration of approval of an amendment to the master plan for New Riverside Parcel 9, consisting of 293 acres of land located north of New Riverside Road at Mainland Lakes and zone New Riverside Plan Unit Development.
Okay, thank you very much. This request is from the applicant John Paul Moore with Thompson Hutton with authorization from Pritchard Farm LLC. This is amendment to parcel 9, also referred to as the Lakes at New Riverside. More specifically, the amendment is for an additional 144 residential lots to be included into this master plan. Please note that those units the owner already owns those units, so these are not new units, it's just applying them to this master plan. What I've done here is kind of highlighted let me go back real quick. So you can see that the existing master plan, which is located off of New Riverside Road, it's adjacent to May River High School. When this came through a couple of years ago, they focused only on the 365 lots, and that's what you see where it says existing. What they're now doing, and if you remember, we specifically stated that the applicant would be coming back in the future at some point to look to include additional lots. At that time, they just weren't sure the programming of it. So what I've done here is kind of highlighted the area where you can see in red under the proposal of the expansion of this master plan. From an aerial standpoint, you can see that this is the subject property on the northern portion of that, where it says parcel 9 is where the amendment is being requested. This went through the Planning Commission, their September 28th meeting, where they recommended approval with the following conditions. Number one was update the plan narrative to show the second access point to the northern cul-de-sac parcels, and that could be in the form of a grass emergency vehicle access, and provide proof of the request for the service letters. The applicant provided all of that information to me, so they have met those conditions. And then, again, let's see, you can see one of the conditions we talked about was that emergency access. Initially, this, I'll refer to it as a double-headed cul-de-sac. This portion right here, it has a one access point here. We asked to work with the applicant to provide a secondary emergency access point. And what I've done here is there's this image you can see, that's the Vineyard Senior Living off of Buckwalter, close to 278. This was an example where they needed to provide emergency access to the rear of the building immediately from Buckwalter Parkway. And you can see it's kind of a grass strips, and there's little notches right here. Those are like cat eyes. That gives the ability for, if there's an emergency, a fire truck, this is designed in such a way that a fire truck can travel over it with no problems. So the applicant updated their plans to include that right here. So just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like.
Tim?
Yes, sir.
Is that, I've dealt with those in the past. I'm assuming there's crush and run or something underneath there to give it a hard surface to substantiate the equipment?
Yes, sir. It is engineered to withstand the weight of a fire truck. They have their proposed phasing plan. One of the concerns that we've had in previous master plans is dealing with parking, both, where we provide those little parking areas for pull-offs. This master plan is designed a little different, where they actually have on-street parking. So you can see from this cross-section where you have 2 travel lanes, and then you have a third area which allows for that on-street parking. So you have individuals that they can park in their 2-car garage. You'll notice that the garage setback is at 20 feet. That gives the ability to park 2 vehicles in their driveway. And then they have the ability to have on-street parking as well. So this plan, you won't see those carve-outs of having people to be able to park in other areas. It gives them the ability to be able to park on the street. From a tree and topo standpoint, what I've done here is there's areas throughout. Some of the areas have actually already been cleared. I believe they're used for for riding for horses. So you can see the area up here has already been established. Here, there is some planted pines, but there's a lot of as this area from a topo standpoint, it kind of drops off towards the back. There are a lot of significant sized trees in that area that are being saved. We are going to make sure to work with the applicant as we go through this process in the development plan to be able to save as many of those trees, prevent that clear cutting. The goal is to focus on development where pines are located, but then allow for those larger trees to be saved. This is my amazing Photoshop skills that I have to be able to kind of give you an idea of, you can see the existing portion that's under development and where the proposed road network is going to be located, and then superimposed over where the wetlands are, and then those mature trees that are kind of buffered around those wetlands. From a review criteria, they met all the review criteria in section 3.93B. You have the authority to approve the application as submitted, approve with conditions, or to deny the application. From a review process standpoint, this went to Planning Commission in September, and it is before you now. If you have any questions, I'm able to answer them.
Any questions from Dan?
Yes, ma'am. Page 592, there's a comment that says the community park may include but not limited to a pool, open air pavilion, restrooms, pickleball, soccer, parking, picnic tables, and fire pits. And explain to us, again, I know there are some amenities planned, but when you see something like this, to me, it seems ambiguous in the sense that you're saying to people who are buying or purchasing, this is what you're going to get, but then is it? So how does that get explained? This is one question, I have two others.
Okay, I think maybe the applicant would probably be better to explain how they present the information to residents. From our standpoint, it's still conceptual, so they're going through this master plan process. It's conceptual as to what they're going to do. So they haven't spent the time and the money to fully program out every single bit of it because they would have received their approval first before they start to spend the money to do that. So I think how it's explained to the or to the residents might be better suited for the applicant to be able to explain that.
Okay. Before we do that, is that something that we govern?
No, we don't.
I think so.
So, the community may or may not have a pool.
Then why is it in the packet?
Because they may or may not. It's the standard language that has been in all of the master plans that we have. Again, it's higher level conceptual, and that's just the language that we have in there.
And two, I will add the next steps, should this be approved, would be the development plan itself. The development plan that goes before Planning Commission, and they look and review at those levels of detail as well as the subdivision plan, so.
A second question. On page 635, it talks about an access corridor has been established to accommodate potential future connection to the school site. So there's a road proposed or in the plan, a connecting road to go over to the school site. And we spoke today, and there's right-of-way established for that. How can we as a town, is there anything we can do as a town to do something that we need to make that happen in the future? Now, the new school area and everything's not built yet, but how do we protect that down the road somewhere when we need that connection? And it talks about public access via private roads to the school site, shall not be permitted unless connecting roadways are installed and maintained by the town or the county. So that's the reason I bring it up.
And Mr. Finger, I'm going to look to you from a legal standpoint of the plan allows for the access is there. So it's shown on the development plan, it's shown on the subdivision plan, so when it's recorded, it shows that there is an access. And I believe it's approximately like 150 to maybe 200 feet from the end of the pavement that at that last house to the property line where it then would connect to the school. I'm not sure when the school system is planning on constructing schools at that location. So the road obviously is not needed until the schools are constructed. As for from a funding standpoint, I'm not sure. I really don't have the answer at this moment. It could come anything from potentially using, with the county impact fees.
But let me jump in.
Yeah.
Because we just dealt with this with Midpoint, and they came to us for a master plan amendment. So we can put in a motion anything we want. If we want to table it now, that can be a condition. And
So-
Terry can say no if I'm wrong, but didn't we just go through this?
I think that you have a right to condition your approval in any reasonable fashion.
Now, I'd also add that area where that connection is proposed the development plan has already been approved, and I'm not sure if they're actually already started construction on that or not. So that area is not owned by Pritchard Farms LLC. It's owned by Cahovanian corporate.
So is this going to be a Cahovanian community, or are we dealing with the same thing we're doing Midpoint? Is this a separate builder?
No, as far as I know, this is the same builder. The intent is Pritchard Farms then sells this to Cahovanian.
Can't we make we can basically, they are coming for an amendment. There's a plan that was approved and now they're coming back, and that's, I'll let everyone else ask, but in this, we can make it a condition that it gets paved. And I know where Dan's going, because we're gonna leave it up to residents to have to deal with it one day in a community, and why aren't we making a developer pave? I don't care if it goes to a berm. We've lived this. So if we want them to do the roadways now,
It would be established.
it'd be established. I don't care if it goes to a tree. So I think that's where you're going.
It is.
Did he answer all your questions? No, we're gonna ask questions, I'll pull you up. Yeah.
I had one other unrelated, the construction, well, it is related, the construction road, it's there. What becomes of that?
Let me go back to the plan.
I think to the right of the project, there's a construction road, is that correct?
Yes, so that construction road stays. That's part of the development. That was, when this plan initially came through, we stated that there needed to be two access points onto New Riverside Road. So that construction road, while it's construction, heavy vehicles are using that as opposed to going through the main entrance, just to, in essence, to save the main entrance road. That would then just be converted to just that secondary access point and then used by the residents in the future.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anything from you? I rode out there today, and I think Dan rode out that right road that right now looks like it U-turns into that other area of the lake is called Pritchard Farms Road. It's a road, has a county sign on it. No, go.
Sorry, let me go back to a wider.
Yeah, so you were right at it. So no, go back to where you were.
Sorry.
You were over there. So see where it says private owned, see the large properties, I think that's Cleveland's property, where the red line is? That, isn't that the construction road you were talking about, Dan?
Yes.
So that road, I found out today, because I went down there, is called Pritchard Farms Road. Well, Pritchard Farms Road ends, and then there's a swath of land, and then it connects to Pritchard Farms Road that goes to 46. So I don't want to miss out on a connection possibility one day for that road. If they're both called Pritchard Farms Road, y'all feel confusing for the police to go down Pritchard Farms Road and realize they're supposed to be on the Pritchardville side. I want us to talk to the county about that, and I guess I just didn't understand the land they're adding has jutted into that space where that road could connect one day. So I don't know why did they buy this land and add it to the master plan, or what? Why are we doing a master plan amendment? Because are they utilizing phase 2, or did they buy more land and put it into this lakes?
You had a lot of questions.
I know,
that
and I know
probably
she's
the
there, but I want
applicant.
you to ask questions and answer them.
It's probably better to answer those questions. I don't want to speculate on their
No, I'm just,
plan.
yeah, okay.
So and that's where I got back to here, the original request, the area that's highlighted in red. This is what they're looking to, in essence, add on to the existing master plan.
So this future development on the left has been purchased to be brought into the lakes, is what what I think I understand, right?
That's currently owned by Pritchard Farms LLC. So they owned all of parcel 9.
Okay.
At one point. And as they've been developing the site, they cut off sections, sell it off to KHOV. You know, they have their legal agreements for all of that.
KHOV is gonna do this.
Yes. And when this plan came through a couple of years ago, again, we made sure that it showed future development, and I think I even made sure, like, hey, they're gonna come back in the future with probably more phases and another amendment to this master plan. And so that's why we're clearly establishing that they are going to come back with more. And we are here today with the more.
Is this the final more?
That's a question for the applicant.
Another question on your parking, and figured you could get all the answers at once. So you mentioned in this part we're looking at, the street layout, you don't have to bring it up. I didn't see that was the way they did it in the first section. So you're saying the streets are gonna be different in this back section with the parking lane in front of the house? Or is it been like, I just didn't see that today.
In the first section, in the initial master plan, they had 2 street sections. So if they had a different road, or a different lot width, they actually had a smaller road and then provided more, their setback was further away to provide more parking on the property. They've changed, they're going away from that smaller one and focusing on all of it with this street section that you now see. So if there was something in the first part that's already been constructed at a different one, then that's already constructed.
Okay.
But moving forward, they're going with just the one street section.
I don't see that, and I know this is site plan, I don't see where your road has widened any to incorporate that, on what you're showing us right now.
We can make sure that it does. With that, by having the street section in there, we're stating that, yes, you are going to be required to do this. Those are really difficult to measure, but we'll make sure that it represents it illustratively.
But it does play into our concerns in the past about front-loading garages where the sidewalk, the cars are in the parking on the sidewalk, because we have made that change, we did it with the lakes.
Correct.
So I don't want it to eat up where the sidewalk now is moving closer to the house.
It is not. So they still will have, they can have you can have your house up to 10 feet, but your garage has to be 20 feet back.
From the sidewalk.
Correct.
Okay. Good. And are we using the tree ordinance, our new tree ordinance on this
Yes, ma'am.
section?
We sure are.
Well, all the trees are cut, because I went down there, I don't know where, I guess the buffer trees are still in place, so, okay. Okay, Lauren, do you want to answer, did you write out the questions down?
And JP, if you'll, yeah, thank you. So if you guys will bear with me, that was a lot of questions, we'll try to type some.
I just wanted it all at once, rather than you're sitting in.
I'm Lauren Nemick, I represent Pritchard Farm, and this is JP Moore with Johnson Hutton.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, so the first question, I think we should speak about the school access, is that where you guys would like to start?
That's when you raised your hand, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the school access, if you look at the existing, you can see that the school access is on a portion of the property that has already been conveyed to Cave Banyan. So that development permit process has been closed. They purchased the property knowing that that access point was there and that one day that connection would need to be made. So Pritchard Farm does not own that property, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but as we don't own it, we cannot require someone else to do something on property that we don't own. However, Cave Banyan is also purchasing the next phase, or they're under contract to purchase the next phase that we are here to discuss tonight. So when they come back for development plan review and permit approval, that would be an appropriate time to ask them about making that connection and when that connection would be built, because then they would own the entirety of the property. But as we don't own the property, we can't. Just that.
What we did,
That makes sense.
working with staff, as they mentioned, phase 4 actually already has a full final development plan permit. That permit was issued in April, I believe. And staff clearly corrected us, say, hey, y'all don't have this easement on the plan. So we have that easement covered, extended to the property line, and it'll be on the plat as well once we plat. So the easement's there.
I don't know what other questions you would have answered that you didn't answer that I asked.
Roadways, whether different roadways.
Yeah, but to creek, he said that would be clear, that he would do that. I can't remember down, Stephen.
I tried to write them all down, but there were a lot.
I know.
Is this the last phase?
Oh, is this the last time? Are there other, I see future development above that, is that Pritchard Farm's gonna sell it?
So this 144 RDU that is all of the entitlements that we have for the property.
Gotcha.
There are, this is not parcel 9D. So those are all the entitlements that we have for parcel 9D. So
As of today.
as of today, I think we're all pretty familiar with New Riverside. There aren't any other RDU to be gotten out there, so I feel safe saying that unless the town has plans for anything out there and wants to throw some RDU, that is the end of that section. Okay, let's see.
I can speak to your streets a little bit. So the streets out here are a little bit wider. They're 25 feet wide asphalt, whereas some of the communities are 22. So it does allow that wider area. It's not striped. We haven't striped it. But to answer your question, each lot essentially, the way it's laid out, it allows basically four cars per lot, which is over and above what the minimum requirement would be. So that's kind of what it was structured around originally in that master plan.
Question on those 4 cars per lot, is that including parked cars in the garage?
The 4 cars does, correct. I can speak to the amenity. So the amenity is actually already permitted by K Hovanian. That was under construction. 2 pickleball courts, pool. I think they got a little grilling area, little pavilion. So to answer your question there, that was it's real. It's being built.
It's a meter space.
It's in the park. So where that right.
Okay.
Since Pritchard Farm permitted this master plan, and they knew, the ultimate was to sell it to somebody else. They wanted to leave that option open to allow those developers to come in and program that space themselves. So that's happening today.
Can we go back to parking?
Yes, sir.
How many on-street parking, and then how many overflow parking do you have?
We don't really have overflow areas in this plan like we had, like the landings, for instance, that we did there, because we've got the wider streets. That's what we worked on for the cross sections. Worker Jones Keepers here, they worked on that section extensively. So that's what we came up with the first time.
So this whole redlined area along one side of the road, you're gonna have a 3rd lane of parking the whole way?
No.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Hi, Mike Hughes, Thompson Mountain. When we did the master plan originally, we had 2 lot products. And one was down as small as 40 feet. And so when we had the smaller products, we actually had it so the driveways were pushed so you could stack 4 cars in the driveway, not including the garage.
Not including the garage?
Not including the garage. So
that's 6
anything.
cars. Hold on, that's 6 cars.
So that's 6 cars, provided they had a 2-car garage.
And not
We did
touching the
that.
sidewalk?
Correct. And so the reason we did that was because you don't really have enough room. By the time you squeeze a 40-foot lot with a 18-foot driveway, unless you were flipping driveways, you really didn't have enough guest parking to be able to make it on the street. So in that instance, we made sure we had 4 off-street parking spaces for the smaller lots because there was no room in the roadway. What we did for this street section, which is for the larger lots where there's enough room to park in front of the home site, we widened the roadway to 25 feet, and then we have a 2-foot curb and gutter, which then brings the whole width, and it's 2-foot, I think it's 2-foot curb and gutter, which then allows for enough width for your 20-foot fire truck travel path, and enough room for an 8-foot parking on the street. So we have enough room to make sure you can have parking and safe emergency vehicle access. So that's what we had 2 models. We knew with the smaller lots, there just wasn't enough street parking, so we pushed the buildings back, or at least the garage back, to enable them to park more, but it just wasn't. I think mostly they converted most of what they built was just the smaller or the larger lot product instead of the smaller one. So.
Thank you, Mike. That hit everything.
I did want to address Pritchard Farm Road while we're here. So that road, the gravel road, the Hall Road is what Pritchard Farm refers to it as. It is a private road. It's newly constructed. So it is not Pritchard Farm Road that connects off of 46. It's a private road. I was unaware that a street sign had been put up there, but
I saw it today.
I'll look into that.
It's a green sign. It's a county road sign.
I'll look into that because that's a newly constructed private haul road to access construction is really all it serves.
But it could be a connector road one day to Pritchard Farms Road. You don't have to debate it. I know it can be.
Yeah, I was just looking at the plan to see, but
But it definitely, because I was talking to Dan And I pulled out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there's a Pritchard Farm. How confusing is this for 9/11? You know, how confusing is this? How can the county allow it? And it was a green sign.
Okay.
So do you?
I will definitely check into that because it is a private, and perhaps they did that to help with construction, I'm not sure, but it is interesting that there are 2 Pritchard Farm roads. But the other one is probably in the county, and this one's in town. Yeah.
You still.
Still doesn't
it's
matter,
not
we're all in the
typically-
county.
yeah.
No, okay.
I wonder if that's an error.
Yeah.
We'll look into that.
Yeah, we'll look into
We're
it.
county residents too.
Yeah,
Not-
no, that would not be, I don't think that would be allowed, so we'll check into that.
Well, and I guess it's, Avery's, I'm guessing, because it loops around to go to that pond. What it does, it goes up and then it loops.
It was installed to service the water quality pond.
Are you gonna pay, so is that private entity allowing y'all use at the moment? Is that?
It is still owned by Pritchard Farm, and it, under agreement, K. Havanian has access to, emergency access off of their property onto that road.
So there's
Required health safety.
Okay, so you have that, and we have that. We have the access.
So there's a there's an access easement that KHOV, well, and Pritchard, and Palmetto Bluff / New Riverside is part of this too. So there's an easement across Palmetto Bluff's property, a sliver here, and then, Pritchard Farms granted, KHOV an easement over the Hall Road here, if that makes sense.
Where does that road end? Exactly, on that drawing, the construction road you were just,
The construction road goes and turns right into service the water quality pond construction area. So once the water quality pond is completed, the construction road will just access the property.
I mean, to the mayor's point, obviously, when you look up to the far left and you see Pritchard Farm Road and all the undeveloped land in there, if you could potentially make the connection to back to what she's talking about, that would be a boon.
The better access for that would be where they're looking to extend the master plan into, because where that road dead ends is literally due south of that.
And that's the only point I wanted to make, is that the land plan that was laid out was deliberate such that there is no homes, there is no cul-de-sac that would block the extension through to Pritchard, the real Pritchard Farms Road. So we did leave the land plan open for that potential. It's not necessarily something that we have full control over to do. I mean, again, we don't have any RDUs, but the opportunity is there, and it was thought about when we laid out this land plan.
Well, the intent is to move to the county and the state for connector roads, not to make y'all do it, because it's not your road. But that little jut on that top with the cul-de-sac kind of went into the upland area. It kind of messed my vision of it. But anyway, it's good.
What about gates?
What is with gates?
It was a gated community. I don't know
They have
how they
gates.
operate them.
I'm honest, I don't know if they actually ever close them, but I know they're.
Point being, obviously, if you tried to make the connection between the development and that Pritchard Farms Road, if it's a gated community, they're not gonna go for it.
It is a private community.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Did we address everything?
I think so. I hope staff will, who does the mandatory paving, and Hovnanian buys this? I think the intent is to get these connections to other properties paved. So if it falls on y'all or planning commission, can we let you know now? Do you need that within the motion? Are y'all taking notes? Well, so Hovnanian is developing the bottom half. Where Dan was talking about is where the access points to the future school is. So we can't make someone who doesn't own this land do it, but once Hovnanian purchases it, so they're entitling it for Hovnanian. So when they have it and it comes back to planning or staff, that's the time where we need to tell them they need to pave those roads, but it won't come back to us.
I understand that, but what if it's a private community? So how can we say, we want you to open your community up to others if it's private?
What?
It isn't open, it's giving that community access to the school without getting on New Riverside Road.
Just that community?
And it gave the school emergency access out of the school campus.
very difficult to impose a condition on property that someone else owns.
No, I know
Yeah,
that,
right.
but it will be owned by that owner, probably after a second
The
reading.
development.
It's gonna be sold to KF we know it.
The intent, but in worst case scenario, if it is not, I would hate to tie the approval to that.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
But we can take notes during the development improvement rule.
During the development approval process, staff can certainly push as hard as possible.
And the school board may not allow that entrance.
Right.
You know, just as likely as not. You know, they don't want people coming in.
Well, when the residents start complaining that we didn't have the developer pave the road, they'll know who pushed for it. So whether the school does it or not, I've seen too many times where roadways get paved and it falls on residents and it's an expense.
It's the time when you bring this into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hi, sorry, I don't want to.
I'll belabor it. Yeah, but
We actually, when we were up for master plan approval for the first round, I think the town required the school to have 3 points of access, and they only had 2. So they actually asked for us to provide the connection to meet the town requirement to have the 3 points of access. So that's why there's a 3rd point that goes through here.
good, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You got a good memory.
Sure. Well, he's been doing it enough. Okay. Any other questions, council? There's a lot of houses out there. I was eye-opening today when I drove back as far back as I drove. So I understand the school's frustrations today. And all of us need to, you really get a better feeling for this when you drive the application. Okay. Nothing else? Is there a motion to approve the request to amend the master plan for New Riverside Parcel 9 consisting of 299.3 acres of land located at New Riverside Road and Mainland Lakes Drive in zone New Riverside Plan Unit Development?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of saying aye? Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Number 5, consideration of an ordinance to amend the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 5, Lot and Building Standards, and the 2 tables will be listed in the motion. This is first reading. This was pulled by me several months ago because I thought we were in the process of doing an overall plan in all other areas, and I had some feedback from residents that live outside of our 92% that wondered why it wasn't on there, and so I asked Kevin to put it back on. So it's already gone through Planning Commission months ago.
Yes, that is correct.
That's why you'll see the.
Yes, and I'll have that information here in just a second. So what we're here for this evening is some proposed amendments dealing with lot types and lot standards. Specifically requiring the minimum driveway length, setbacks for covered parking. This is related to projects outside of the historic district, so I've blotted out the historic district. Does not reflect any of the planned unit developments. So everything else that you see in color that's not green, that light green, would affect. So the properties, the yellow, the pink, the purple, the fuchsia, and greens that are not PUDs would be affected by this. Some of the issues were the driveway length, eliminating unnecessary lot types, adjusting some of the setbacks as well as lot coverage for various lot types, and then improve some of the formatting. One of the concerns that we had is the way that the Unified Development Ordinance is designed for non-historic district properties is that these lot types allow for a front setback of between 12 and 24 feet. So the building can be placed, the front of the building can be placed anywhere within that area. The problem is that it doesn't reflect parking. So then if you have a building that's up at 12 feet and then you do a front-loaded garage, well then half of your vehicle is in the right-of-way. So again, you talk about finding areas that we need to make improvements to, this is one of them. Here's an example of a shallow driveway versus a long driveway. This is, you can see where if the garage is set back at the same of the dwelling unit, we could potentially be parking in front of the sidewalk and or the road. Here's an example. This is an example, this is in Bluffton, where vehicles are parked, and you can see that the sidewalk was placed inappropriately. This was a side loading product that probably should have been a front loading product. So this is what we're trying to get away from allowing. This table right here, I know that you all are probably look at this every single day like I do. So what we've done is we're going through, we have various lot types that are just not appropriate. What we're doing is eliminating some of these larger lot types that are just, we don't see that anyone is ever, subdividing properties to that. Then the actual, the lot width, we're making sure that the lot widths are consistent. Currently, the way it's written is, you may have a lot that is a minimum lot width of 50 and a maximum of 70, and then you go to 70 and then 90. Well, the problem is that if someone builds a 70-foot lot, which one are they? Are they a medium lot width or are they a large lot width? So we're cleaning up some of those inconsistencies. Also removing some additional lot types that are not appropriate, as well as handling some of the side setbacks. And then also, at some point, you have too many asterisks and people don't know what that is. So we've changed the footnotes to numerical as opposed to asterisks. And making sure that anyone that has, if you have a product here, this like the small house lot where it's a minimum 10, maximum 24, you can still have your house, a portion of your house at 10 feet, but then your driveway would then have to be pushed back to make sure that someone could have their car in their driveway, even if a portion of the house was pushed towards the front. So you can have a portion of the house pushed up and then the driveway pushed back. To be consistent with the elimination of these lot types here, we have another table. It's just to show it based off of the various zoning districts of where it's allowed. So again, removing, being consistent in removing those lot types. The review criteria are all met in this. Planning Commission, this was in front of Planning Commission back in January where they voted 4-2, and they recommended to maintain the maximum lot coverage for the estate lot at 50% instead of the 40%, and then require all lot types with a minimum lot width of 40 feet to have vehicular access from the rear lot. Now, I've highlighted this portion right here where it says all lots. The concern is that we have other lots in here that are below 40 feet. So if you have a townhome lot, so a townhome is where you have a single family house that is attached. So townhomes, you may have 6 units in one building. Well, what happens is that then prevents someone from having a front-loaded product completely. That means that they would have to have everything rear-loaded. If the town of Bluffton decided to do townhomes for a workforce affordable housing product, what this does is it eliminates us to have the ability to have front-loaded product. And it forces you to have everything in the back. When you do that, it costs more. That means you still have to have a roadway. You now have to have an alley for everything to access off of the alley. Well, all of that causes you to have to charge more money. So from a cost standpoint, we want to give the flexibility to ourselves as well as anyone in the future. So what the alternate recommendation is that we would only require the small house lot, and that is being changed from currently a 30 to 50 foot wide lot product to 40 to 50 foot wide product. Only that if someone wanted to come in to do a small house lot, would they have to have that rear access that we're talking about. So what happens is that if you had a duplex or the small townhomes or a large townhome or the mixed use lot, you would be forced to have that access from the rear. So we want to prevent that. That was the planning commission's recommendation. That's a lot. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm gonna go this way.
So I understand the need for the amendment of the shallow driveway to the long driveway. Going back to the omission or removal of the 2 lot types, is the reason for that, and I see some of the review criteria listed, but is the reason for that because it's been identified that there's not enough space in the areas that were on that map to accommodate those style homes, or?
Yes, so again, this lot standards were created in 2011, which, Bluffton was different then. What we're realizing is that, in essence, that's like a half acre, almost an acre size lot. And that's not, we're not seeing lots like that. The problem that we're actually faced with is a lot of lots along Buck Island, Simmonsville, and Goethe Road they're long lots and shallow. So when if you had a lot that was, 155 feet wide, well, that means you'd have to have had a 50-foot front setback, so 50 feet away from the road, and then from your rear property line, 80 feet. So that's an amount of area that you cannot build a home in. And if your lot is only 150 feet in depth, that gives you 20 feet to build a house. So that's what we're trying to eliminate, so that way any of these existing lots where people are coming in, they're trying to put a home on there, they're trying to put a mobile home on there, it drastically restricts the amount of space that they have to be able to put these homes on there. By eliminating those lots, but still having this the estate lot where it's a 90-foot and no max, we give that flexibility for them to have more space to put a home in.
Right, and I get that. My concern is just that there are a few residents on some of the roads that were mentioned that still own, quite a bit of acres outright individually. And if there was a desire for them to build one of those styles because they do have the space for it, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around them being denied the ability to do that because that designation is taken away.
It's actually, we're not taking it away from them. So what we have here is that for this estate house lot, so you have a minimum of 90 feet in width, but there's no maximum. Mm-hmm. So that maximum, what happens was it was triggering you, it was kicking you up into that next country house lot, which restricted you more on your setbacks. So by now just establishing the estate house lot, your front setback is at 30 feet and your rear is at 40. So it's actually giving individuals on existing lots more space to work with.
So those two are falling under. So estate house lot is essentially farmhouse, country, and estate.
Yes, they're absorbed into that estate lot.
I'm confused because I always thought that we had 20-foot rear setback, 20-foot front setback, and between 5 and 10 on the sides. So why does that change?
I'm not sure now what you're referring to for the 20. So you can. So here, an example of that small house lot, as you can see, it was struck through with a 30 and the 50. So if you had a small house lot that was 50 feet wide, your front setback was between 10 feet and 24 feet. So you had that flexibility to put it at 24 feet. The problem that we were then faced with is that we couldn't regulate and tell you, if you put it at 10 feet, we had no provisions in place to make sure that you were providing parking that was adequate and not encroaching over the right-of-way. We actually had a development where we had that issue and we made sure that they did provide that amount of space for the parking in the driveway.
Let me ask it a different way. Are you talking about a development or are you talking about a single lot?
Both.
So someone with a small lot, and like you described earlier, there's usually narrow lots, and so they can't really build a large square footage home on it. And so the struggle is always going to be a hardship, always going to be what type of home will fit on my lot. We're looking, I don't see where you're saying we're going to have an opportunity for you to still not be in a hardship because your lot is not big enough for you to put anything on it. If you change, if it's not a minimum of 20 feet and 10 feet on the sides, 20 in the front and 10, 20 in the front, and 20 in the rear, and 10 on the sides, like we see what we have around all of Bluffton right now, especially in Old Town.
Yeah, so in the historic district, it's based off of your building type. So different building types allow for different setbacks. And that's why I want to make sure that this is not associated with the historic district. Typically, this is going to be for properties, like I said, Buck Island, Simmingsville, Gothey, and some that are in the neighborhood core districts that we have. That would be on Jason Street, some on Buck Island closer to May River Road. The intent is still, as you can see, anything in the white here is not being touched. Anything in the yellow color is what is being touched. So, you could still have, if you had a house that is, 49 feet wide, you take your 5 feet off of either side. Okay, so that gives you now 39 feet of width to put a building in. Typically, you then have 16 to 20 feet for a 2-car garage, and then you have a portion of the rest of your building that you can work with. We're not recommending any changes to those side setbacks.
Okay.
So.
Question, and when we put this back on here, I talked to several residents out there and concerns, well, let me go back to lot size, because I just pulled up the lots. Most of the lot widths by Collin Simmonsville are about 90 feet. So it's not that narrow that we're thinking, and I think there were several on Gothey that were 54. But the concern that some residents have that I've heard is, what is it? Doesn't this eliminate this perpendicular row of mobile homes going down? Now, wouldn't they more be forced to be on a lot where they have to be more front facing? So where do mobile homes fit into this chart? Does that push the landowner, if they want to put a mobile home in, now you're not looking at the sides of the home going long ways. You're going to have to look at the fronts where the front porches are more. Isn't that kind of making that lot width not as narrow, so they'd have to have a wider lot?
If someone owns an acre of land and their goal is to subdivide into multiple parcels, then we're making sure that if they're doing this smaller house lot, they can do no narrower than 40 feet.
Okay, but is a small house mobile?
A mobile home at that point, a mobile home is typically anywhere between 60, 75 feet wide.
Where does it fit in this table?
It would still have to fit in the lot.
In the lot, okay.
Yes. And if you had a lot that is 90 feet in width, then you have 15 feet on either side. So that's.
Kevin, her question triggered another question for me. Does this change if you have an acre of land? Right now, you can have 4 dwellings per on an acre of land. Would that change the number of dwellings you can have on that acre?
In the residentially zoned district, you're still only allowed the 4 units per acre. So however you decide to if you have an acre and you're trying to subdivide, you still have to subdivide to where you can't subdivide to try to get 6 units out of that. Now, the other thing is that if you have 1 acre and we do allow for an individual to place like multiple mobile homes on one lot, that's still allowed. What's happening is some of these larger lots that we have where individuals are trying to put multiple mobile homes, the larger setbacks are really restricting the amount of space that they have to work with. By eliminating these bigger setbacks, we're allowing for more land within the buildable area for those mobile homes to be placed.
I'm not sure if you answered the question though. If none of this would change the amount of allowable dwellings per in that 4 acre.
Correct.
So this
Not being changed.
It won't be changed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm glad I brought it.
Yes.
It actually helps it, if I'm not.
Yes, sir.
It would provide more
Make it
room
easier.
for them to then place those units on there to meet those setbacks.
Any other questions?
I just want to commend Fred for.
You have the planning commission recommendation, which was those all lots, those 6 lots. And then staff's recommendation is that it's just the small house lot. Again, those were the lots that we referred to. Your actions are to the various approvals. This will be come back as a final reading, public hearing next month to you. And then I have a proposed motion. This is based off of staff's recommendation.
Good, okay. Is there a motion to approve the planning commission recommendations with changes for amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 5, Design Standards, Section 5.8.3, Lot and Building Standards, Table 5.8.3A, and Table 5.83B as follows. To maintain the maximum lot coverage of the estate house lot at 50% instead of 40% as recommended by town staff, and require that vehicular access for the small house lot type be only in the rear yard. For all other lot types with a minimum lot width of 40 or fewer feet, including duplex, small townhouse, large townhouse, small mixed use, and small lot commercial, town staff shall analyze each lot type and determine whether vehicular access should be provided from only the rear of the lot, with findings presented to the planning commission at a workshop.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Is it clear to y'all? Any discussion?
What happens when we can't get, the owner don't want to have rear parking? Is there a way for them to get second look, like maybe the town manager or even you, Kevin, can say we will look for an alternative to help you make your project work or your this product work.
May I respond?
Yes,
So
please.
what can happen is you can still access from the main road. It's just your driveway would go along your property line, and then you would have to park in the back.
Can they appeal to the BZA?
Do you have a UDO administrator check the box on this?
You could request a variance, yes.
But the key, going back to the example you showed with the graphic, you're trying to keep the cars of a house from sitting on the front of the lot, on the sidewalk and things like that.
Yes, sir.
Obstructing the view of other traffic, maybe to an intersection or on the sidewalk. That's the whole impetus of this whole
Yes, sir.
discussion.
Yes.
So if you had somebody coming in that didn't like, Fred's point, this, and asking for leeway, they're probably not gonna get it because it defeats the whole purpose of what you're trying to accomplish anyway. In that example, either that or they push their house further back or make their driveway a little longer. Is that correct?
Yes, or just make their lot just a little bit wider to meet that next type.
But it also costs more. it also costs that person a lot more money to make that happen. So we eliminate one thing, but we cause a hardship because now it's not affordable, or maybe can't not run into a place where it's not affordable. That's my concern.
Unless you go back, it depends on how much room you have too, Fred. It depends on how much further back you push the house.
Depends, yeah, but see,
Okay, any other discussion?
affordability in Bluffton is always gonna be our
You
challenge.
have to please talk in the mic, guys.
Affordability in Bluffton is always gonna be our challenge, so I can understand not wanting the sidewalk in the driveway, or blocking or obstructing the sidewalk. But the example that you showed us, we allow a developer to put a sidewalk where it shouldn't have been.
Well, now we know better.
Yes, sure do.
So, does UDO administrator have oversight, Heather?
Yes, the process is planning commission workshop, UDO administrator. If we still can't resolve it, they can apply for a variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals if there's a hardship condition, or if they believe I made an error, they can appeal it to the planning commission or BZA.
And if it is somebody who really has
Yes,
a
there's-
hardship, not
yeah.
a developer, is that let's handhold you through this process to
Correct.
make sure this works?
Yes, we do that.
It's tough, but I mean, that's not a clear path, but has always been it. The variance has always been an option, but affordability is something that I think staff needs to be conscious of, that we got to be, we have to have exceptions for people that's trying to make affordable living.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Item number 6, approval to authorize a construction contract with J.C. Construction Services for the Buck Island Road drainage improvements. This is in fiscal impact $116,992.38. Pat, you're up for both of them, and this is just bringing it to our overs, Pat.
He is under the weather. He's still
Oh,
struggling with his cough. I saw him this afternoon. And
you're not, Pat.
I apologize.
I hope he's feeling better. So, Pat Junior, you'll bring both of these to us. These are items we just like to see at a public level for transparency and to be able to approve in public. I don't think it's any of those. Well, we have it in our packet.
Yeah, if you'll pull up the packet that's online, you can just click on your staff report.
Yeah.
Because it's all linked.
Gee, they want some.
Go back out if you want to.
Guys, do y'all not have what Kim said? We have the packet
Pull the packet up
online.
online. Apologize.
No, it's fine. Oh, your first time loving it, more prepared.
That's what happens when you pitch it sometimes.
Item 7, item 6.
Just scroll down. It should be.
11, just scroll down.
Yeah,
I
packet.
wouldn't do there,
Packet.
packet.
Click on the PDF
Packet.
under
General
packet.
page.
PDF. Okay.
And scroll down.
Good.
No, go down. Go down. You're number 6.
Yeah, that's not it.
That's not it.
If you click on packet,
Go, scroll all the way down. Scroll all the way down to number 6. There, stop, right there. No, well, if you want to do the presentation. Good.
Hey, no pressure.
Is that
No
still
pressure.
hard?
Yeah.
So, good evening.
Good evening.
Apologize, got the notice to present without having an opportunity to coat and tie, so apologize.
But you can just do the highlights of it.
So before you here is give you a little background as the Buck Island Road Drainage Improvement Project. As the name suggests, it's located along Buck Island Road. The implementation of the project will be to reduce the risk of flooding along the roadway, the nearby structures, the properties, by replacing 2 existing culverts that are underneath the roadway with 3 24-inch reinforced concrete pipes. The project was originally advertised in March of this year. No bids were received. Through several discussions with staff and consultants, it was decided to re-advertise the project in July. We did that. 1 bid was received for the project for $163,216. The cost exceeded the engineer's estimate and approved budget for the project, so staff met with the contractor and rescoped and discussed ways to value engineer the project, and resulted in a new construction cost of $116,992.38. The duration for the project is anticipated to be about 60 days, and it will include a permanent road closure along Buck Island Road for about 2 weeks.
Any questions? Is there a motion to authorize town manager to enter into the agreement with JS Construction Services for construction of Buck Island Road Drainage Improvement Project? The agreement includes a commitment from the town of Bluffton for $116,992.38 and a 10% contingency to be paid from the appropriate town funds. Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yes, one question.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming you'll have signage out indicating to the residents far in advance?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Sir, did you have a question?
Yes. When we got the renegotiate the price, did we also change the scope of the project?
What primarily happened was there was a quantity error in the asphalt paving area, so the asphalt quantities were higher, the asphalt and the base quantities were actually higher in the bid form than what was actually going to be needed. So it was primarily a quantity error on the consultant's part, and as we went back through and looked at it, we identified it, so we were able to trim the cost down.
Good for you. Questions? The school did it. I mean, this is a bus route on that road every morning. And I guess the power company will be on, right? Because they block the traffic. Does the school know? What are you going to do for 2 weeks with school traffic? Because that's their route.
The school has been notified. One of the things we'll do is have a pre-construction meeting with all the stakeholders. So the detour route has been established. However, the contractor will submit a final detour route, and all the stakeholders and parties will have to agree on the route and the timing of when it happens.
Will Bluffton Middle allow public traffic down that road, Mustang Road? Because I would think that's your detour for.
They'll have to.
They'll have to.
Mustang is a public road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a public road.
Okay, there you go. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. The Greenery, number 7, a construction contract to the Greenery for Law Enforcement Center Challenge Course.
Okay. A little background on the project or on the Law Enforcement Center. So just a few projects have been completed in fiscal year 22 at the Law Enforcement Center. We've had some parking and service yard expansion projects to improve parking there, covered storage and carports at the LEC, new flooring, as well as the reflection closet that's currently under construction. This is just an illustration of the master plan that was approved for Buckwalter. As you can see there, the LEC is listed. There is 2 future development buildings to the east and to the north of the LEC, as well as the Evercore Park that was recently purchased by the town. The location of the project is to the west of the LEC building. The scope for the project is the area to be impacted is approximately 150 feet by 150 feet. Clearing and grubbing is going to be provided under a separate contract. The working surface, when everything's said and done, is going to be sod. No drainage system, as everything's going to be infiltration sheet flow. There's no impervious that's going to be added for the project. We anticipate the duration to be around 60 days. And once the area is completed, it will be enclosed with fence that matches the current LEC fencing as well as columns that match the current LEC columns. This is just an example of the columns that are currently at the LEC today, and those will also be part of the project, as well as the fencing. And this is just an illustration for the type of equipment and type of activities that would be occurring on the challenge course. In summary, the project will serve as a place for law enforcement personnel primarily to train for the police academy as well as maintain the readiness. As I mentioned before, it's going to consist of brick columns, fencing, gate access, lighting, and the elements for the challenge course will be provided in the police department budget.
Any questions? You've said 60 days on both. Do you have a start time on both? Or will you get that to us?
We'll get that to you.
But it's within the next 90?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to have,
There you go.
So I have.
Is there an authorization for the town manager? What were you saying?
I'm sorry.
No, what were you going to say?
I was just bringing up the motion. I apologize.
Okay. For the town manager to enter into the agreement with the greenery covering the site development of the challenge course, the law enforcement center. This includes a commitment from the town of Bluffton for $98,605.02 and a 10% contingency to be paid from the appropriate town funds.
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is your first time and you're asking for a lot of money.
And Chris is allowing it, like Chris has no more money left.
Maybe we give him the 2 cents.
I don't want to go over that. It's 5 cents, you have to come back.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
He did good.
Yeah, you did good.
Thank you.
I apologize for the no coat and tie.
Oh, you're fine. Wait a minute, we haven't voted yet. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, great.
You get the benefit of the person who's actually the project manager on it.
Good.
So,
Well,
both these projects.
you do a great job.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And are you still on Estill Town Council?
No.
No. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Hard worker. Okay, thank you. Item number 8. Consideration of approval of an amendment to the master plan for Cypress Ridge within the Jones Estate Planned Unit Development for additional roads and service lanes to the commercial village area of Mill Creek for future development of 29 attached residential units on approximately 1,412 acres located on South Carolina Highway 170.
Yes, ma'am.
Table this.
Table this, we're back here.
Coming back to tell us what happened.
Sure thing. Just as a refresher, Planning Commission made a recommendation to deny the master plan request as submitted based on the review criteria that were outlined in the staff report. This came in front of you at the September meeting where you made a motion to table the request to make sure that the developer and the community had an opportunity to meet, and staff being present. That meeting was held on October 12th with D.R. Horton and the members of the Mill Creek community. We were present, provided background information on the Jones Estate PUD, including historical aerial maps, previously approved versions of Cypress Ridge, and possible scenarios of development in the area in question. So there were numerous residents that were in attendance of that meeting. There was a lot of concerns about the amount of traffic that would be the cut-through traffic of this newly proposed portion that would intersect Wooden Wheel Lane, Oak Barrel Boulevard, and Blakers Boulevard, and felt that it was not appropriate. And as at this time, there have been no additional changes to the proposed master plan from the applicant. Again, the review criteria were provided in the staff report. These 4 listed were the ones that staff had concerns with that did not meet. Your actions are to approve the application as submitted, approve with conditions, or to deny the application. Again, this was tabled, and we are here this evening for your recommendation. I am available to answer any questions. Councilman Wood was present at that meeting. He heard a lot of concerns of the resident, and the applicant is here if you have any questions.
Questions?
Yeah. No questions. Tell me how the meeting went.
The meeting went well. If you were on opposite sides of each other, I think that the citizens that were there were asking for a lot from the developer. It was cordial. The developer was trying to, I felt, compromise in some ways, but I don't think anybody ever came to a conclusion that was agreeable to all.
Can I speak up for me?
Let me just get questions first.
Oh, sure.
Remember the questions you're gonna answer. Anything from this side? No? There was a really thorough email that was sent. I replied and thanked the person that brought up some questions I even had about the development agreement. And I know council is not happy about this commercial to residential, which is out of our hands. But the email brought up, and I went back and looked at the agreement talking about added roadways. That is a no-no in the development agreement. So that's really, you know, if it can cut out 4 houses, that's 4 less houses than we have to deal with. So my personal thought is to just let them deal with what they have and follow Planning Commission's recommendation. And I know a lot of people want everything, but I just hate it. The whole community was built around a mixed use kind of little village, and now we're seeing residential. So exciting. And they can't sell commercial, but it is going to turn one day, and the commercial is going to come, and not to follow the development agreement and the master plan is just frustrating for us to have to look at our school district board and say, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do, and it's this conversion thing. So it really wasn't a question. It was more I just wanted to make sure they read that email. Do you want to answer Dan's question? Are you good, Mike?
Sure. I just wanted to say that I think it was a good conversation. I think that I'm Mike Hughes at Thompson. And so there were really a few things I think the residents want. Number 1, no commercial. Number 2, no cut-through road. Number 3, no homes on Bell Creek Boulevard. And really the cut-through road is what we're here for. So that one was really off the table. We were able to get so that all units would be on the cut-through road or facing Oak Barrel. If we just had that road connection go through, but otherwise, there's no point in the land plan amendment if we don't do the cut-through road, because by right, we can do front-loaded. We just saw this as an opportunity. We can't fit all 29 without utilizing the commercial parcels that are up on the corner, which felt was a great opportunity to actually dedicate as open space. But again, there are 7 and change acres of commercial development rights, and there are 29 conversions to townhomes, or 29 DUs that it can be converted from. So either way, I mean, they're residential builders. They're trying to just close the development out. But just vote however you need to, and we'll move forward. And we're perfectly fine. We did our best, but we certainly want to do what council wants to do. So.
Did we clarify what was deeded over to the owners, Kevin? So is that clarified what
Yes,
is
ma'am.
not owned by the developer?
And just for the context, there are the 2 red pieces up here. It was a Scribner's error on the part of D.R. Horton, where they had those listed as part of the conveyance to the homeowners association. That has since been rectified and has gone through the Register of Deeds. They've taken those back, and they're back under D.R. Horton's control. So these were lots. These were commercial lots up here. They weren't common open spaces. When they were deeding over all the common open space and all the roads to the POA, they inadvertently put those 2 lots in there. They've since went back and took them back out of there, so they still have ownership of those.
Anything else? Thank you. If you'll put the motion back up. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make it. I move to deny the request to amend the master plan for Cypress Ridge consisting of 1,412 acres of land located west of Highway 170 and north of Highway 46 and zoned Jones Estate Plan Unit Development.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Denied. Okay. We have a consent agenda. Remember, we did remove item number 7. Is there anything you'd like pulled off of this consent agenda to be talked about separately? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Is there a motion to go into executive session for 3 items? Contractual matters relating to the municipal judge contract at FOIA 3470A2. Legal advice regarding intergovernmental agreement with Beaufort County for the collection of development impact fees, 3470A2. And personnel matters regarding town council appointments, boards, committees, and commissions, that's 3470A1. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Will there be action from executive session? There will, I think our reporter left, but there will be action from executive session, so we'll make sure we get that out to everyone. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're in executive session, but we're
Hello, my name is Ebony Sanders. I am the Beaufort County Assessor. Our goal with the Beaufort County Assessor's Office is to educate the public in the areas of real property taxation. In an effort to meet that goal, we are here today to show you a series of videos, starting with this one, concerning the Beaufort County Assessor's Office wage. Start by going to the Beaufort County website, www.beaufortcountysc.gov, and you can go there to locate our webpage. To begin, when you're at the webpage, you will start by going to the Government tab on your page. Then you will find Departments and under Assessor. When you select Assessor, the page will direct you to our webpage. On the Assessor's webpage, you will find a host of information that you can do research on. You can find additional information about your particular property, but you can also actually find online applications where you can apply for legal residency applications as well as ag use. So let's look at the legal residency application to begin. You'll see there's a link that you can apply for the legal residency application. You select our link, and here the application is provided for you. My suggestion would be to read the entire application thoroughly before you begin, as you will need certain documents to submit with your application. If you choose not to apply online, you can also apply in paper form. Go back to the Assessor's Office webpage, go to Forms, and here you'll see a list of all the forms that our office supply our taxpayers. You can actually download these forms and print them off and submit them in writing. Your application can be mailed into our office as well. You can mail them by using our mail-in address, which is located in our contact information on our webpage. You can also fax your application in along with your documents to the fax number that's listed on our webpage. Again, the form section of our webpage does have a lot of information there. You can browse, you can navigate through the different types of applications and select the one that's most appropriate for your situation. Additionally, on our webpage, you will find information about who we are and what we do. There's a short video explains the Assessor's Office role in the taxation process. Another part of our online web pages that would be very interesting, maybe beneficial, is to download the 2018 Reassessment Guide. By selecting the Reassessment Guide, you can actually download this particular brochure and read it at your convenience, or read it while you're online. It will give you more detailed information about our office and what we do and how we can help you as a taxpayer with regards to your real property valuation. Returning to the Assessor's Office webpage, you will see that you can contact us by reaching us at 843-255-2400. Our location is listed on our webpage as well. We have 3 different offices. We have 2 satellite offices, one located in Bluffton, one located in Hilton Head, and our main campus is here in Beaufort, South Carolina. If you would like to know the addresses for those locations and find the ones closest near to you, you can go back to our page to Resources, select Office Location, and the addresses to our buildings or our locations are listed there. Additionally, what would be very helpful to a lot of our taxpayers, they would like to find out more about their property value or properties in their surrounding areas. You can use our Property Max feature under Resources to search for real property by your personal PIN number, your AIN number, or your name. And your situs address is helpful to have as well if you want to search for a particular one by your situs address. In the near future, we're going to do a series of videos that will give you more detailed information on the Property Max portion of our website. Another feature that you may find very, very interesting, you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter address is located here on our webpage, and you can actually link to our Twitter account, and you can actually see any new updated events that are occurring with the Assessor's Office that's important to you as a taxpayer, or just information that we would like to share. Thank you for joining us and allowing me to introduce myself. You can gain additional information by going to www.beaufortcountysc.gov. You can contact us by calling us at 843-255-2400. And you can always send a message to us using our citizengram that's listed on our webpage. Again, thank you for joining us.
Here's what's happening in Beaufort County.
A few miles from Beaufort, South Carolina, in the town of Port Royal, stands a property of national importance. In fact, it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places. For more than a decade, the only public access to the property has been by water. South Carolina's Department of Natural Resources is working to provide access for all. For this to happen, a cultural resources inventory, or archaeology, must be done. Built from tabby, a mixture of oyster shells, lime, sand, and water, similar in many ways to concrete, Fort Frederick's construction was ordered in 1726 by the British colonial government to guard Port Royal Sound and the town of Beaufort from approach by Spanish warships. An estimated 50,000 bushels of oysters were needed for the 5-foot-high, 5-foot-thick tabby walls. It is the oldest tabby structure in South Carolina. The adjacent property is the United States Naval Hospital. On this property was the 19th century Smith Plantation, which became the Union Army's Camp Saxton during the Civil War, and home of the 1st Regiment comprised of freed slaves. This site is 3 acres. The object is to extract as much information as possible in a given amount of time. There is a certain methodology used in an investigation like this. Come along and see how it's done. The initial shovel tests, dug randomly around the site, examine the density of artifacts and the period of occupation. At Fort Frederick, artifacts included 19th century, 18th century, and prehistoric objects.
This is a flake, a stone tool flake. This is a piece of chert from Allendale, copper site. Over top of that area. That's a cool find. It's pretty, it kind of tells you how rich it is out here.
With these initial tests, archaeologists determine the depth required of the shovel tests in the next phase. That depth is when they reach a sterile soil layer, where they no longer see cultural material. For phase 1 of this project, a grid is laid over the site map. The scope of work here calls for shovel test probes every 10 meters across the entire 3 acres.
Right. Oh.
Using a surveying instrument called a total station, pin flags are placed to match the grid map. Each flag is identified by its exact location. Now, digging begins. A field team from the University of South Carolina's Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology is contracted to conduct the fieldwork. The data collected from these shovel tests will guide the upcoming month-long excavation, as well as any that may be undertaken in years to come. All the soils are screened through a 1/4-inch mesh. All artifacts are bagged according to their exact location and depth for later analysis. For the next phase, units of 2 meters in diameter are laid out in the areas confirmed by the shovel tests to have the highest density of artifacts. The field team removes soil layer by layer. So how deep is each level? Sometimes a standard depth of 10 centimeters is used. At Fort Frederick, they'll excavate layers according to changes in soil color. Again, all the dirt is screened and the artifacts bagged. This information will accompany the artifacts throughout the curation process. These units show an occupation from the first half of the 19th century.
This is stoneware, American stoneware.
With only 4 weeks budgeted for the project, the field team must be meticulous and quick at the same time. Motorized screeners help speed sifting through large volumes of soil, while some tasks require a more delicate touch. Looking closely, some areas show a color change in the soil, called features. These areas were likely disturbed by humans in the past. Were these post holes for a structure? Or holes where items, often trash, were buried? These features are excavated further as they often yield artifacts. And these features must be excavated to their sterile soil layer. Work in this area of the site is planned for 2 weeks. For the second half of this project, the team moves to the fort itself. The decision is made to lay out contiguous 2-meter units that span the fort's interior, wall to wall. Given the depth required, there is a lot of dirt to be moved. Near the east wall, the team encounters a rubble-filled feature. This feature is excavated and the contents bagged for the trip to the lab. Every conceivable data point, stratigraphy, soil colors, depths, and features is collected for later analysis. The excavation of the fort's interior has exposed the full depth of the walls, yielding artifacts from prehistoric times through the 19th century. Now, lab analysis will begin to piece together unknown facts about the site's long occupation. But first, before leaving the site, the units are backfilled to preserve their integrity and ensure the safety of the public when the site is reopened.
We've been referring to it as the rubble scatter.
After many months in the planning stages, a week of shovel test probes, a month of unit excavations with mountains of soil moved, plus weekly engagement with the public, archaeology at this site is done for now. Nearly 2 tons of oyster shell, brick, and artifacts were transported to the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology at USC in Columbia for analysis. It is here that the significance of what they found will be assessed and added to our understanding of those who occupied the Fort Frederick Heritage Preserve.
And that's what's happening in Beaufort County.
I'm Emery Campbell, and this is your Beaufort County Moment. How huna da do? Be glad for see huna. Be glad huna come for yeti why I have to say. That's Gullah. The Gullah language is a mixture of English and African words. And what I said to you was, how are you doing? Una was you in that sentence. I'm glad that you came to hear what I have to say. The Gullah language came out of West Africa, mixed with English, and it was spoken throughout Beaufort County and the Low Country by African Americans up until recently when our population has changed so that we now speak more like Ohioans. But the language has African words. Yeti means to hear. Una means you. Loni means to stand. Biddy is for chicken. Kuda is for turtle. So those words mixed in with English have made the Gullah language a unique language. Some people call it a patois, we call it a language, and we find Gullah language being spoken throughout the Low Country. So we're glad for Siuna. Thank you.
To see more Beaufort County moments, go to the Beaufort County Library homepage and click on the Local History tab.
Beaufort County strongly encourages local, small, and minority-owned businesses to submit a new vendor application to its purchasing department. The application and vendor guide are available online, along with information about current business opportunities. Visit www.beaufortcountysc.gov. Click on I Want To. View bids and RFPs under Business Services. Vendors must be registered with the county in order to respond to solicitations. Quotes, bids, or proposals submitted by businesses that are not registered with the county will be rejected. Registered vendors receive email notifications when new solicitations pertaining to their area of interest are posted to the website. Thanks for watching the County Channel.
When the clouds form, the rain pours, and water is all around, you'll ask yourself, how prepared or unprepared are you?
No motion, no votes were cast, but there are items out of executive session. So while council's president, is there a motion that we reappoint Clifton Bush as the Town of Bluffton Municipal Judge and authorize the mayor to sign the new contract for a 3-year term starting 1/1/23 for a 3-year term with the salary and benefits negotiated by the parties?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Is there a motion to move that council authorize the town manager to enter into an IGA with Beaufort and Jasper County, Town of Hilton Head Island, Town of Port Royal, City of Beaufort, City of Partyville, and Town of Yemassee to jointly create, fund, and operate a regional housing trust fund?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is this a resolution that we're voting on?
Yes.
And that counts?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Is there a motion to appoint Courtney Hampson to be the Bluffton representative to the Regional Housing Trust Fund representing the town of Bluffton?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there a motion we authorize the mayor?
Mayor.
Why?
They had you and Joe as the signers on there.
Oh, to sign the proposed IGA with Beaufort County for the purpose of collecting certain development impact fees.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
None. Thank you, everyone.